3, 2, 1.
We're ready.
All right. We're here with Rolling the Rocks, second podcast episode. We're in Victor, New York at Club Champion, where Brian Jacobs teaches out of, and just in the off season, right?
Just off season, yep.
Mill Creek in the season?
Mill Creek during the season, yep, and then on my trips wherever I go.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Before we get into all your accomplishments and awards, I kind of want to get a little feel for who you are as a person and
Sure.
your family aspect, your hobbies away from golf.
Yeah, it's a great question. I grew up in Hilton. I was one of 5 kids, so tough German and Scottish parents.
Okay.
So we grew up, had a little bit of property, and we had chores and no allowance, and kind of learned the work ethic at that time. So I'm 60, so I was born in 61, and was in high school then in the 70s. So I graduated in 79 and went away to play baseball and football on a scholarship. So I was a baseball football kid. I never played golf until I was in my 20s, 27. I started.
Incredible.
Yeah, it's crazy. And my mom worked at, she was a waitress at Ridgemont and Brooklyn at the same time.
Okay.
And we never, Pat Rubino, the late Pat Rubino used to ask us to play golf, and we were like, no way, playing golf. We're baseball kids, but I did caddy whenever they had the invitationals, and so I can remember walking at Ridgemont, and then ultimately I worked there. I had an academy there a number of years ago, and just saying, like, the current practice area used to be their 16th hole, and I can remember vividly walking up and pulling the cart, onto that 16th green, which is now the practice green, and just going there and seeing some of the changes that happened to the golf course, and just kind of took a different trajectory. I never thought I'd ever play golf, truthfully. None of my friends played, and nobody played in college, and so when I got out of school, I had a degree in teaching, so I had a master's in education, so I taught in the city. And kind of my start in golf was my first year. I got asked to coach the middle school golf team, and I really didn't know much about it other than, what I saw on TV.
Right.
And so I started to read, and I said, maybe this would be fun, to play. And so I kind of got into it a little bit. I had somebody make me a set of knockoff clubs, like a lot of people do. And then I joined Salmon Creek, believe it or not. And so that's, and
So
I
you
was
kind of took the plunge.
Yeah, I was
Joined the club
self-taught. Yeah, I never took a lesson, and just kind of figured it out. I couldn't hit a driver at the very beginning, so I said, well, I'm just going to get good around the greens, and I never really knew why. I just did it,
Right.
Because I was good at it, and then I didn't hit it really far either, So I was 2 iron, off the tee, and I got pretty good, and I got down. My first year, I was under a 10.
Oh, wow.
So I could always putt, and I always had good feel around the greens, and so I just would constantly, practice on that, and then I could pretty much, scrape it around and shoot just a couple over par, and then when I got good at it, I said, I started getting high school inquiries, and so I got transferred. I was at Jefferson Middle School, and then I went to Monroe Middle for just 2 years, and then the rest of my career was at Edison Tech.
Okay.
And one of the reasons they wanted me there was I taught health. I could teach PE also, and then I also coached. So I coached football and golf for another 5 years, basically there. And I got a chance to work at Midvale Country Club, just in the bag room, and as a caddy master. And then I went to Locust, and we started a really deep caddy program there. Steve Barber and their board wanted to have something great for the kids.
Yeah.
So we took a lot of the city kids off the street, and I started city golf. And so then I would partner with Mill Creek. I used their short course, and every Monday we would use that course. And I started writing grants with the city of Rochester, with the Western Golf Association.
Oh, okay.
And so we copywrote our own book, which the Western Golf Association didn't do. So then they had to call us and ask questions. And they were 50 years in the business, and we were 1, or 2, but we had some really sharp people on our board.
Yeah.
And so that kind of led to an assistant's job there with Steve, and then just kind of saw the value of teaching. I taught a lot.
Yeah.
And I was a teacher at heart, and I was always kind of like, well, I want to be a head pro, and then I was like, I think I'm better at it just being a teacher. And
Right.
so I just realized that being a specialist was the way to go. So I had passed the player's ability test in between that. I shot 71.67, so I shot under par both rounds.
Wow.
And then got into business school. I did the business school in a year because it was just like getting a master's degree. So I did 3 checkpoints in a year and then was elected into membership in 2005. So it's 2022, so whatever that is, 17 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, being a PGA.
Now, before you got any certification or turned pro, did you play in any tournaments as an amateur?
I did. I played in the Mid-Am, the local Mid-Am. I played in some RDGA stuff. But what was really funny was the competition to me was more with myself than anything else. Like, it was how low can I get, by myself before I need instruction, And I never even thought about instruction because I didn't know how to seek it out. I didn't know it was like baseball. And like back then, we didn't really have coaches other than our high school coach. Or maybe somebody in your town was a superstar, and you would go to them and like, hey, how do you do this? Or that's how I got coached. Even in baseball, we had a guy in our town. He was older. He caught in the Pirates chain, and so I was a catcher. And his daughter and I went to high school together, and so I talked to him and said, well, how did you do this, or how did you do that? And that's how I learned.
Yeah.
Same thing with golf. I would just ask questions of good players, and like, how did you move the ball from this way to this way? They would tell me, like, well, I kind of went like this, and then, oh, okay, and then I'd try it, and it worked.
Right.
And I was like, oh, okay, well, how do you make the ball go that way? And I started to learn face control and all these other things, like that I didn't know were turns. I just said, hey, I'm going to go here and curve it that way.
Now, do you still find yourself teaching that way, since it's kind of the first way you learn?
Yeah, I think like when I went to see some of the top instructors, like I went to see Jim Flick, saw Jim McLean, I saw David Ledbetter, I went to see Bob Toski, and then Hank Haney made the most sense to me.
Yeah.
Because number one, he watched the ball flight, and then I started to read about him and said, oh, he went to John Jacobs, and John Jacobs went by auditory, and then he heard the sound on the club, which I understood. Like when someone hit it good in baseball, you could hear it, and I said, oh, okay, that makes sense. Like you could hear, because I was a catcher, you knew when they hit it good, you knew when they popped it up, you knew when they didn't get all of it.
Right.
And it was just the same kind of sound to me. So I mostly learned auditory, and then I liked that he was kinesthetic. He would move people around.
Yeah.
And he used to tell everybody, I used to go to these teach the teachers with him early in my career. He would tell everyone it's the hardest way to teach, but it's the fastest way to get somebody to learn. And I said, man, that just makes sense, like moving someone. If I had that in my life, and so I'm very kinesthetic, very tactile, and very auditory, and I'm not super visual. I am enough to see ball flight and stuff, but I'm not super visual.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So a lot of
crazy.
You're learning from the result. More
Like I would look at ball flight and I would say, oh yeah, curve this way.
Right.
How far is it away from the target?
Yeah.
But like when I started to use TrackMan, I was like, I don't get it like at first. Even though I spent $25,000 on it, because you had to get it for your customer too. And I use it more for confirmation than anything.
Yeah, I could see that.
Like I could say like, okay, look, the ball started just to the right of your target and it curved, and they can see the line and stuff. Like today, even in a practice session with a student, we take all the numbers down because I don't want him to play by, oh, I'm 3 degrees this way and 4 degrees closed. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I can relate to that for sure.
But what makes sense is, oh, I curved it too much past the target. Well, how do I control that? Well, I can either swing farther away from the target and use the same face angle, which doesn't make sense, or I can swing closer to the target and not close it much.
Right.
And so then you can start to set some training aids down and say like, okay, let's keep it in here, which is dispersion. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of got it down to 4 things. Like when you just look at the start point of the shot, the strike on the club, in the field, right? The turf, how much you hit it, you got to be able to feel that. If it's fat or thin, it means whether the path is over the top or under, and then how much it curves. And so you can kind of play golf by that.
Yeah.
So I ask my students all the time, like, well, how did it feel? Like, what did it sound like? How much turf? Which way did it curve? Okay, tell me what happened. Well, my path moved too far this way. The face was too closed. I chunked it. And so I hit it on the heel.
Right.
So then we can change the strike point. So that's where you can use the numbers a little bit. But like when I first started teaching, we didn't even have phones.
Yeah, none of this
really
existed. Yeah.
So I think I learned the best way. I
Right.
learned by an expert and using their eyes to see the shot, and then
ears,
working
yeah.
backwards from there, saying, "This is exactly how it happened."
Yep.
And I used to watch Hank, like, I worked in ESPN golf school, so he was the dean of instruction. And then there was a kid up here that played for him at SMU, and I used to have him over, and I paid him. Like, just teach me everything that he taught you.
Yeah.
You know, how did he move the club? And so I could feel that. And then when I would go and we'd get tested, you know, in our groups, he was just like, how did you learn how to move the club like that? And I said, well, I learned from one of your players, you know, how to do that. Well, who? And then I told him who, and he's like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And, you know, like he really thought that was a big deal to seek out somebody like that. And I was just like, I needed some type of, not method, but just something to stick my pick in and go with it.
Yeah.
You know, like you have to have, you got to believe in something.
You either like it or you don't, and you find something else to stick your pick in.
Yeah, stick your pick in the ground and go.
Yeah.
So you have to relate to somebody. You can't be everything.
Right.
You know?
That's something from the perspective of my learning experiences that's huge to me, is being able to learn from someone who can relay it properly to you.
Right.
So
Like
you
you're
can
taking,
understand it.
we're taking very complex things and turning them into layman's terms, right?
Yeah.
And so I've got all different walks of life in here. I've got financial people, I've got NFL players, I've got engineers and doctors, and some have feel and some don't, and some are auditory and some are visual and some are nothing.
Yeah.
Some are dead from here up and some are dead from here down. You know, some people can't feel their hands, they don't know they have feet.
Yeah.
You know, all these things. And humorously, we can all laugh about it, but one thing they can see is ball flight.
Yeah.
You know, if we can train them, just get those four things. How much ground did you hit? Well, I don't know. What did you feel? I didn't feel anything. What did you hear? Well, I heard a really early hit, so the path is too far underneath.
Right.
And you're like, oh, then we can infer that it's in to out. You know, and then you show them on track and you say, yep, your path was 8 degrees, you know, in to out. And then they think you're a genius. But I've just seen it so many times, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Pretty cool.
It is, yeah. All of it is.
So that was a long answer to a short question. I think I talked my whole life.
Touching back on your experience with Hank Haney, I mean, do you still talk to him? Or
I don't.
You don't?
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't. Yeah, I do talk to some of guys that used to work very closely with him, and they've. He doesn't teach anymore.
Okay.
So-
That was kind of my next question: is how involved is he in
Not very.
what he used to do?
No, not very. He
Right.
plays a lot of pickleball, from what I understand.
Well, out of what? I'm sorry.
Pickleball. Yeah, and he's like a world-class pickleball player.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, these guys too at that level, and the girls at that level, they're not there because they're weak. They're there because they're good at what they do. You know, like some people say it's luck, but when you get around the bigs like that, and it's just different. You know, they don't smell the same. The wind when they walk by isn't the same. You know, like you see somebody like Tiger walk by, and you're like, wow.
In awe, yeah.
You know, like it's just different,
There's just
right?
an
Their
aura
look is
around
different.
it. Yeah.
But then I've always been able to break it down to like, well, they're still human. I'm going to go talk to them.
Yeah.
You know, and not being a pain or anything else. And so for some reason, him and his staff, they like me. You know, because I was a teacher.
Right.
You know, and I knew how to break things down
Right.
and
That's
talk at a lot
huge.
of different levels. And even like my college experience, and then I failed out of a couple schools too, and then I did a lot of different things in between. I worked in industry. I was a waiter. I was a bartender. I did some stand-up comedy for a couple years.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and then I went back to school when I was 23, and so I think it shaped me to be able to be humorous when it's time, know when to shut up when it's time, know when to speak when it's time.
Yeah, stand-up comedy, that's interesting.
Yeah, and then and I used to say too, even my teaching career, I was 30 years. I taught 10 years before I started to build my golf business, and so every day I was a comedian, a parent, a priest, a therapist, a friend, a father to some of these kids, you know, and at the same time you're dealing with administration this wheel, the kid is this wheel, and then I would go from poverty, extreme poverty, and I'd go to the club that I would be working at and teaching to extreme affluence in literally 10 minutes. Yeah. And the universes never cross with each other ever. And I'd go in the city and then out, and then back in and then out, and it was awesome. It was like this incredible dance. And so now what's happening is, in my life, I'm able to go out and speak to corporations, to sales teams, to other things, and just to share my experience and say, these are the certain things that need to happen to help people be successful. And the big buzzword now is being authentic. Well, why wouldn't you be?
Right.
Who's lying out there,
Yeah.
It's been very, very interesting. Very interesting.
So, just real quick, I'm sorry I can't get over the stand-up comedy.
No, you're
What was that like for you? Did you have success with it?
I did. Yeah. Actually,
where'd you do it mostly?
It's at a place now. It used to be called the Outrageous Inn. It was, I did went to open mic, and so when I was a high school kid, I had my social game was good. My academic game not so good. My athletic game was excellent. But my grades not too good. And so, if I could have gotten out of high school, I probably would have. I probably would have skipped high school and grade school, and I still would be fine. Yeah. And so I tell everybody my story, and I say look, from 3rd grade to 8th grade, I was socially promoted. I didn't know my times tables. I didn't know any division or any math. I didn't know geography. If you would have pointed on the map and said, "Is this East Coast or West Coast?" I would have had no idea, no clue. Yeah. And so I didn't know the continents. I didn't know any country. I knew there was other countries, but I was like, who cares? I'm in the United States. I don't care about any other country. I care about the United States. But then I didn't even know why they were united. Right. I didn't know how many states there were, like Hawaii or California. And then when I started to gain a sense of that is when I played football in college, and I said, oh, Texas is like, and I'm in New York, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, I gotta go, I don't know how to get there, And so I flew, and I go, thank God these pilots know where they're going, and they just dropped me off in San Antonio, and I had to get to Seguin, and then where it is. There's no GPS or MapQuest or anything. You have to figure it out. Yeah. That was the best thing for me. And then my scholarship was based on special talent. And so back then, they could take athletes into the school that didn't necessarily warrant being there. They were low functioning, right? So I always said, everybody called me special talent, and I always thought it was because I was a great athlete. It was because I was had some special differences, in my learning. And so I had a tutor, and the tutor explained to me that not all freshmen get a tutor, number one. Only the special kids get them. I'm like, I know. And they're like, no, it's not because you're a great athlete. It's because you have a learning disability at the time. And I was like, I never thought I had a learning disability. Yeah. And so he's like, have you ever been classified with dyslexia? And I'm like, no. What is it? Well, you see words backwards. I go, no, that's not me. And he goes, well, do you have this? Attention deficit. No, I can pay attention. Well, what's the problem? I go, it's boring. I don't understand why I have to do this to play football or play baseball. Right. Well, what if you don't get to play baseball the rest of your life? What if you can't balance your checkbook? Or what if you can't do this? So he started to make it practical for me. Well, why do I have to take English if I speak English already? And he's like, well, you have to know how to write. Well, I know how to write. Yeah, but you have to know how to do a resume. Show me how. Okay, why do I have to take a 14-week class in English to write a resume? And he says, well, you have to know how to speak to people. I go, I already do. My mom and dad taught me. We went to church, and like I have every answer because my social game is good, right?
Yeah.
He's like, look, this isn't high school or grade school. You're not getting out of having to take these credits.
You have to show that you can learn.
Yeah, you have to show an aptitude, right?
Yeah.
He says, well, what do you want to do with your life? I said, I want to catch for the Baltimore Orioles, but that dream is over, so I'm here playing football, and I'm not going to go into the NFL. So I legitimately have no idea. I said, I think I'd like to be a coach. You know, what do you want to coach? Doesn't matter. He goes, well, football would be good because I know it. Baseball would be good. Well, how about if you're a teacher too? Nah, I hate kids. I said, I don't think I could be a teacher because I'm a failure of the education system. So it clicked to me like maybe I should be a teacher because I'd be different.
That's what I was thinking earlier. There's sort of this irony to your story of
Yeah, it's weird, isn't
you
it?
not liking school.
Yeah,
coming
I
out
loved
of it,
school,
being a teacher.
but I didn't like the academics.
Right.
Yeah. Like I still don't get math and science in school, and like why people have to learn stuff that isn't going to be useful in their life. Like I get general stuff like, look, here's a map of the United States, and let's go on a trip and travel, you know, but you're going to fly and you're going to have a GPS, and you got Google now.
Right.
So if you need to know anything, just use Google. Right? And that's what the teachers are doing now, more or less. They're saying, Google it. Google it. They're not teaching. They're guiding to Google. Yeah. And the problem right now is that this is really kind of interesting. In my case, the kids were socially illiterate. They did not know how to talk to people. They didn't know the voice.
Looking at the screens.
Yeah, they don't know how to speak. They don't know how to shake a hand.
Yeah.
So I said, I was fortunate. I taught health. I used to tell the kids at the very beginning, I don't care about New York State curriculum. I don't care about this. Here's what I care about. Here's when you pass. You don't get murdered. You don't get a disease. You don't get incarcerated. And when you're 30 years old, I want you to come back to me and share with me how your life is. And then I'll give you the grade, kind of a thing, right? So as far as I'm concerned, everybody gets an A. Doesn't matter, show up, and we'll talk about important things like how are you going to break the chain of poverty? How are you going to break the chain of drug addiction? How are you not going to get pregnant like your mom did at 15? And so the success rate of the kids was really, really good in my class.
Wow.
Because the grade didn't matter to me. What mattered to me was your life. Are you sowing good seed? Are you intentional about your life? Are you taking action in your life? Are you determined to live with purpose?
Yeah.
You know, those kinds of things. Instead of like, oh, you have to know, you know, what tube carries the egg to the uterus. Yes, you need to know that, right? But is that the most important thing?
Right.
You know, to these kids? They're not. It wasn't. What was important to them was, how am I going to get money when I'm poor? And I'm like, how are you going to get money when you're poor without robbing someone?
Right.
But they want immediate gratification because they see everybody around them with money. I go, that guy driving that car, he's not rich. He's going to jail eventually. He'll get caught, somebody will kill him, or he's going to jail. You know, they all get caught.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of time.
Right.
He's rich now, and that's what you see. Pocket rich.
Right.
That's all. He has no generational wealth.
No, because in the end, I mean, you can't do anything with illegal cash, right?
Right. He has nothing to pass to his offspring. He's just making it every day, and that's a grind, right?
Yeah.
Like my grind's awesome because it's legal. You know, my grind is generational wealth for my children, in experiential wealth, and in legacy, as well as capital.
Yeah.
Right? There's all different kinds of capital, and that's what we used to talk to the kids about. So serious comedy at the same time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and that's what you have to know, and that's part of the problem even now with, I see even with younger teachers, you're sitting behind a computer, you know, teaching, and that's not teaching. Well, it is teaching because it's just having someone spit information back. I'm a coach.
Right.
You know, I'm accountable, and I press the students. Like, well, why did this happen? Like, I ask open-ended questions in my coaching. I'm not going to tell them.
Right.
We're going to evolve to that answer so that the learning is deeper, and they acquire a skill. And then once they acquire a skill, we put them under pressure, and then if they can perform, they've mastered it, right? They're competent,
Right.
and then they win.
Yep. Absolutely.
Another long answer to a short question. But comedy was great. It was great.
Good.
And I've never
Actually-
stopped doing comedy. It's like my whole life.
I was just at the comedy club last night.
Oh, were you?
Yeah,
Who'd
so
you-
Jay Moore.
Oh, okay. good.
Yeah. He did a great job. It was fun.
Yeah, the highest I got was I was an opener, and I opened for Kevin Meaney at Yuck Yucks in Canada.
Okay.
So Kevin Meaney was, he's deceased now, but he was very, very famous, and I was not.
I might be able to recognize him by face, but I don't recognize
If you
him
saw
by name.
his skits, you would poop your pants. They're so funny. I mean, to me, he was like the funniest guy, and I would come and watch his sets, and I'd say, I don't know if I'll ever get to that level. He was brilliant. And then right at Cirrus, Rob Riggles is a Cirrus owner, and so he presented. He did a comedy skit,
Okay.
and I mean, their timing is, I have the timing, and I think I'm funny inside of my group,
Yeah.
and I probably could do it again.
Yeah.
Like I had a group of 400 at Cirrus, and they were all laughing. They thought it was great, and so who knows?
That's
Maybe
awesome. What a great natural public speaking experience.
Yeah, and like people were like, "Were you nervous?" What am I nervous about? I'm just telling my story.
Right.
Not
right.
really. If I was lying, I would be.
Exactly.
Be like,
Yeah.
okay, I got to get this in there.
Right.
Oh, be careful, it's on virtual.
Right.
Don't lie, because someone's going to see it.
Yeah. So I read that you're one of 6 to achieve the level 3 certification,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
as
for
well
Hank.
as Hank's e-coach. Yeah. So
Yep.
that's his e-coaching test. the
Yeah, it was
level 3?
pretty. Yeah, at the time we were developing it, so I helped them write curriculum and
Oh, really? Okay.
yeah, help the teachers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they had this big pool of information, and the gentleman at the time that was running, his name is Tom Harlan. He kind of passed the reins over to a guy named AJ Avolu. So Tom is still in the area, and we just reconnected after a few years. He's in Louisville in that area, McKinney. And then AJ got a job at La Costa in San Diego. And so AJ is like top of the level.
Okay.
And Tom is still doing really, really well for himself. And so what they would do is they'd allow me to kind of get on the inside of the circle.
Yeah.
And so I helped them write curriculum, help guide them a little bit in how to do curriculum, because that's what we did as teachers.
Right.
And they were golf professionals / teachers.
Okay.
But I was a real teacher,
Yeah.
So,
I guess my overall question is,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're one of 6, is that because the level of difficulty? Okay.
yeah, it was hard.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how relevant is that number? Is it still one of 6? Or is
As far as I know,
Yeah.
like people that worked with him or for him were doing corporate schools and stuff were all 5s. There was no 4.
Yeah.
And so you went from 3 to 5.
Okay. Gotcha.
So I did ESPN golf schools, and I led them for 5 of the 6 years that I worked with them. But I couldn't get to a 5 unless I worked directly for Hank at either one of his facilities. He had one at Lake of Isles, Foxwoods in Connecticut. And I still stay in touch with the guy
Yeah.
that was there, who's now at Royal Oaks in Houston. We just talked when I was on the way, and we talk every week still. And then there was, Ed Bow. Ed is a superstar. He did all his corporates, and this guy was amazing. Still teaching. I think he's at the Landings, which in Atlanta, and so I'll talk to him every once in a while. But he's not affiliated with Hank anymore. But this guy is like, if I could bring him up here, it would be unbelievable.
Yeah.
But then I wouldn't be the star, so I have to keep him away. But he lives in Jacksonville, and he was driving to Savannah, Georgia, not Atlanta, and he would stay overnight for 3 days, and he would just teach his butt off, and then he'd go back home and live in Jacksonville for the rest of the 4 days, and he was making some pretty good cash.
Nice.
Yeah, he's phenomenal player.
Yeah.
And he was at Amelia Island for a long time, and so when I was affiliated with Hank's instructor stuff, I would take groups to Amelia just to see Ed so that I could teach with him and learn more,
Right.
you know, selfishly.
Yeah.
And then the groups would come and they would stay at the resort. I'd pay him, I'd get paid. The guys and girls that went had fun, and I was learning all at the same time.
Yeah.
So,
That's what it's all
sneaky.
about. Yeah.
Yeah. But smart too.
Yeah.
Even though I looked dumb.
So, tell us what year you started on the Golf Channel and how that kind of came about.
Is this 2022?
Yes.
So 2015.
Okay.
Yeah, this is my 7th year.
Okay.
It's a little less prominent than it was back in the day, like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Or 2 years ago, where it was, well, let's see, 2020, so 2019 and 2018 were probably the top 2 years.
Of the amount of times you went on there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I got asked to join Golf Channel 2015, 16, and it took me a little while to decide because it was a lot of work. It was, number one, I didn't think I was at that level.
Okay.
And the people that called me said, we wouldn't be calling you if you weren't at the level, and we'd really like you to be
Fair
involved. We don't really have anybody from your area. I said, so are you just bringing me on because I'm from upstate New York? Or they go, no, we've been watching your career. And I'm like, that's weird. Kind of weird in a way, like stalking it from the high level. And so the vice president of instruction called me and he said, look, he goes, we really want you to come on board. Here's how it works. And when he explained it to me, he says, it's a great opportunity. You'll be on morning drive. And he goes, a lot of people are scared to go on TV. And I go, I'm not scared of that. I mean, I'm in front of people all day long.
Right.
You know, so that's not a problem. He says there's some travel involved with it. I'm like, okay, that could be a problem because I was still at school. But he said you get a chance to come down here and you get studio time to do content. And I'm like, okay, that's what I need. And so I kind of looked at the whole situation, talked to my wife a little bit, and I said, look, it's kind of a gratis position. Like, you don't get paid for it, but you do.
Yeah.
So it's not on the front end, it's on the back end.
It'll pay off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I said, look, I'm all about experiential capital. So I called him and I said, yeah, I'll do it. And he said, okay, we need you down here in 2 weeks. You're going to do morning drive with Damon Hack. And I'm like, okay. So put together your 30 best videos, your 30 best things that you want to teach. And I was like, wow. So being a teacher, I put it together like super detailed, and sent everything to them. So they put it in front of a producer then, and then you have a production meeting and you go through and say, yeah, this is a good one, this is a good one, this is a good one.
Interesting.
Yeah, so then when you go on morning drive, so I was on with Damon, they did one live and then they did one in the can. So I did one with Damon, then one with Paige. And we did that a bunch of times. And so you got to work with those personalities. They started to know you then, and it became this really good relationship where they were looking forward to you coming down. And, oh man, I saw you were coming down. And so when they fly you in, they get you a car, and they put you at Bay Hill. And so I got to meet Arnold Palmer before he passed away. I stayed in his suite every time I came down.
That's awesome.
The Palmer suite. So I'm like walking in figuring, man, I'm just going to be like in this dumpy hotel. And then they put you at Bay Hill. And so every single time I went, I was at Bay Hill. And you come in, like you would come in on a Monday and you would bang it out Tuesday and you were on a flight Tuesday night. So you're only there 1.5 days. And so you'd shoot your 2 morning drives, you'd do a Facebook Live, and then you would do maybe 20 videos if you could get them in. And so they really liked me because I could do 20 90-second videos, one take.
Yeah.
And he said most people can't even get through 5.
Wow.
And I'm like, this is like, and they're giving you studio time. They're giving you an hour and a half. That's worth thousands and thousands of dollars to have it. And then they edit, they put the trailers, the sound, everything in. And so it's a little weird the first time. They hook you up for sound, right? You're here, that's a director. And in this one, you have your producer. So you have two on, you have 5 cameras, you have one with a teleprompter for your intro, and it's live.
Yeah.
So you can't screw up. And then they got 1 here and 2 this way, and then they have 1 moving with you all the time. And they tell you So the producer says camera 5, camera 4, camera 3, camera 2, whatever they want you to look at. So he's talking to you, they're talking to you, the director's talking to you.
Well, you're talking.
Well, Damon Hack's talking to you.
Yeah.
Like, look at him more, like, look up, And so you can't say, oh yeah, I got it, because they're shooting live.
Yeah.
Right? And so you're getting all this information. So like when someone's calling a game, like on TV or something, like people don't understand how hard that is. When those guys are in the studio, they have people chirping at them all the time and they're looking at this. But it just becomes normal, right? Even when I just did my last speaking engagement, they go, hey, we're gonna mic. I go, I get it. Just down the back, in the ear, fix the mic.
Yeah.
It's not my first rodeo. And so as you start to shoot your own content then, or you just become very comfortable in front of the camera.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't bother me. Like this stuff.
Yeah.
Some people would be, pooping their knickers. Oh, I'm so nervous. What am I going to do? And we would get a lot of guys like that. If you were really lucky, you could shoot at Tranquilo, which was outdoors. Mm-hmm. So sometimes they'd run you from the studio over, and you might shoot another 10, and like you're barely going to make your flight.
Yeah.
And then before you go on your flight, from the Facebook Live, you go in and you start answering questions. And if you're really, really fortunate, you get to do a breakdown of someone's swing. So I got to do Sergio, I got to do
wow.
So Sergio's got 1 million views.
Nice.
That's insane.
Yeah.
And when they called me, when the director of content called me, they said, have you looked at how many views you got on Sergio's? I go, I don't know, like 4. He's like, yeah, try 1 million.
Wow.
I'm like, what? I go, no. I go, one guy's looking at it, 1 million times. That's all. And it was the year after he won the Masters, like his swing.
Okay.
So he was coming back, and it was a 10-year anniversary.
Searching his name, yeah.
Yeah, or like you get to break down, like I broke down Justin Rose's swing and why he won a gold medal. That was 500,000 views.
Wow.
So that's significant then for your business because then you can sell your YouTube channel, you get more business driven to your website.
Yeah.
And so as I was with Golf Channel, I evolved into the business end too. So we had a product called Instructor Plus where we would actually help people with their marketing through Golf Now, which is the other side of their business. Mm-hmm. So everybody associates Golf Now with Tee Times. Golf Now actually has social marketing agents. They have B2B agents, so people that can help you run your business. And in exchange, what they do is they take Tee Times from you and take the money for the Tee Times, give you a percentage. That's how they pay for their people to be there.
Okay.
And so what I would do is I would work closing sales for them with instructors. And so we have probably, we offered it to everybody basically. We probably have 200 instructors that do that, and they're paying $500 a month for the service. So it's a pretty lucrative business.
Yeah.
And so they helped me. I don't get any commission or anything out of that. I just like to help.
Yeah.
And I see the value of it for friends of mine. And so they help them with their online scheduling, with their assets. Assets for people that don't know are their banners and voiceovers and all these other things that people do. Something that you know about because you got to do it in your business. They help them with their Instagram. So even my Instagram posts, some of them are organic. Some of them are my agent.
Wow, okay.
Posting for me.
Interesting.
Yeah, and we do a calendar every year.
Yeah.
So on the business end of things, people don't look at that. They're like, well, I'm just a teacher. I'm just going to teach, lean on a 7-iron. That's just a tiny part of the business, right? How do I drive more revenue in?
Right.
We'll have to have students.
Yeah.
Right? And so, word of mouth will take care of it. Oh, yeah, that's a little.
Right.
But social media brings them in, and that's why you're doing this, right?
Exactly.
I mean, ultimately, you're going to monetize it.
Yeah.
And it just takes more views, and it takes more
subscribers, follows.
And the only way to get subscriptions is to have content that's pertinent.
Right.
And so you learn what is and what's not.
Right.
Like I did a video, it's really weird. I did a video on impact with a ball in my hand going just showing impact, how your lead wrist is supposed to go into flexion.
Yeah.
I had 5,700 views on that in 30 days.
Wow.
That little drill and people are going into these long discussions on, oh, you gotta have the, this degree, and
Right.
they're like boring,
Yeah.
disconnect.
Exactly.
Like they'll probably do on this interview.
Hopefully not.
They're not going to stay in this thing for, they're like, this guy's a loser. What's wrong with this guy?
Well,
Obviously, I'm passionate.
yes. No, you definitely are, and
Hopefully, to keep these viewers interested, I've read some of the awards that you've won. I mean, I don't know if there's probably more than this. Golf Digest Best Teachers in the State Award, Horton Smith Award, which is now, I guess, the PGA Professional Development Award.
I
Bill,
still call it Horton Smith, though.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Bill Strasbaugh Award,
Yeah, that's
Player
for,
Development Award.
Yeah, so Bill Strasbaugh is for mentoring other people, coaching. So part of my DNA is giving, not only to charity, but also to other teachers. Give back, right? You got to train the next chief, because eventually the old chief dies, right? And if you don't leave some kind of legacy with them, it's,
Yeah.
hopefully a positive one.
And then the two others were Golf Range Association of America, Top 100 Teaching
Yep.
Professional,
PGA Magazine, yeah.
and you're two-time recipient of the Western New York PGA Section Teacher of the Year Award. Out of those, or if there's more that I haven't named, which one, when you received it, sort of meant the most to you, or what? Were you very taken back by?
I think two. The first one, they all mean a lot.
yeah.
I probably coveted it the most, the Teacher of the Year, the first time I won it, because it was such a surprise. And I didn't really understand what goes into it all. I just thought, nobody else wanted it, so I got it. And then when I got explained, like, no, this is your peers are voting, and then there's a committee. And when I got the call about it, I was like, are you sure you got the right guy? I had been nominated a number of times, and I was always like, well, I'm not on the right end of the politics, or, whatever. And I go, that's okay, though. I was fine with it. Because I don't do it for awards. They just
Right.
kind of happen organically, I guess. Probably the second would be Best in State.
Yeah.
And so I'm ranked 14th right now out of 50. My dad called me and he's like, "Oh, you're 14 out of 50." I go, "Yeah, that's pretty good. Well, how come you're not number one?" I don't know. I said, "I think I am
Thanks,
number
Dad.
one. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Having you put me down." He goes, "No, like I legit want to know why you're not number one." And I said, "Well," I go, "Michael Breed teaches in our state, so he's high-end TV show, everything else.
Yeah.
So and a great teacher." I said, "Daryl Kestner's another one, great teacher." I said, "I feel pretty fortunate to be in the top."
In the same
50.
sentences, then. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
And it kind of goes both ways with these types of things too. Like some people think it's political, and some people, I don't know.
Right.
I'm just honored that anybody would even think of me, nominate me, and vote for me on those things. I think most recently, probably the Strasbaugh Award
Yeah.
means a lot because I'm giving back, and I
Right.
always have.
Right.
But I guess somebody noticed, and I was also nominated for the Patriot Award this year too, which
Oh, nice.
would mean a lot.
And which one's that?
It's called the Patriot Award. It's an intersection, and so it's like helping veterans, and so I do a lot with PGA Hope.
Yeah.
I was just this past spring I was on CBS Sports. They did a special, and so I was in the first segment, just kind of about what I'm doing with veterans, and it was a complete surprise to me when they called. James Brown narrated it, and when they came up to shoot it, I'm like, are you sure you guys? Because there's prettier people than me. And so I think I know my parents are proud, and my wife is proud, my daughters are proud, but I'm proud too because I'm not just sitting, teaching.
Right.
Like you've got to go out and help people, and it's always been that way. I've always been in the service type of industry, and I don't know. I think when you give, it just makes you feel good, right?
Yeah.
When you serve, it makes you feel good.
Yeah,
Can't ever serve enough. Can't ever give enough.
Yeah. No, it's kind of the reason. Some of the reason I'm doing all this is just because it's nice to hear someone like Yara
Yeah.
appreciate this so much because
Right.
I think in episode 1 he had mentioned when he got back from setting the national record, he had read this article that Rochester has nothing going for itself, this and that, and he was just appreciative, and I'm glad that you're giving me the time to do all this. And,
Yeah, I think that.
I want to help the golf community myself.
Yeah,
the
and
best
I've been
way.
very blessed. I mean, and I think when you start to stop looking at like who's going to give me something, like who the takers are, and the takers get pounded their whole life.
Yeah.
They never can stop working. I work because I choose to, and I don't really call this work.
Right.
It's relationship building, and like to me, the most when I pass away, if I could look, down hopefully from heaven, and look down and see how many people are at the funeral, how many people thought about me. That's the most important thing, right?
Yeah.
That you're leaving some type of generational legacy in a positive way with people, and that they look at you as somebody that gave, that served, that was pretty much a straight shooter with them. Not to the rude point, but there's a way to be, succinct with people and still not be rude.
Yeah.
And I've been so fortunate. So many people have poured into me, my business mentors, my spiritual mentors, my coaching mentors. I've got people that have been 40 years in this business that will call me. We call each other every week and just say, how we doing?
Yeah.
Are we on the right target line? Not because of money, but because we want to get into the game. And again, I'm late in the game. I was late in the game. I was almost 30.
Yeah.
I've only been in the game 30 years.
I really can't get over that because, I personally don't know many people that have not only picked up the game late, just to play it as a 10 handicap, single digit handicap, even that's just rare, but to pick it up so late and done what you've done.
Well, here's how I work, right?
A whole nother level.
How I work is when someone says you can't, I do.
Yeah.
I just work and compete.
Right.
And so, even for me now to compete in section events, I don't get that much enjoyment out of it. And it's not because I couldn't win.
Yeah.
It's just because I know the work that it takes to do that.
Right.
And I'd rather compete against myself and then be great with my students for them to say, aha.
Yeah.
He can really play, or he can do this, or what he's saying makes sense.
Right.
So to me, that's a better image or a better role model than me to walk in and say, hey, I came in 5th in the section championship. And that's okay. If that's what makes people happy, that's great. But that's not what moves the needle, in my opinion. And we get very focused on tournament golf, even in our section, sadly. And it doesn't mean that much. That's not what moves the needle. You're doing something as an amateur, that moves the needle.
Right.
Because it's relatable. He's in the community. He's walking around at a bar or at a restaurant. And he is the Tiger Woods of the area, maybe. And maybe I'm the Sean Foley of the area. I don't know. And it doesn't really matter. What matters is my culture appreciates me. I'm a great role model for them. And that I can back it up. And so I've been on this personal journey of not only betterment, but also proving that at 60 years old, I can swing the club fast and I can hit it far.
Yeah.
And so if anyone's been following on Instagram, I reached a goal in about 2 months that I thought was going to take me a year. And so I have to readapt my goals. I wanted to have a 161 ball speed. I had 163. Okay, and then I also wanted to have a 105 swing speed, and that was a 108. So I have to reset, right? Because I'm going to go faster than 108, right? So I'm hitting it 303 carry.
Wow.
At 60. And then the new, can I say Callaway? The new Callaway Rogue came out.
Yeah.
I had to get refit for my shaft because I'm faster and I swing harder.
Right.
And so new shaft, lower spin. So I don't even know what to set my ball speed at right now. I'm asking questions of all my friends that are high-level teachers. Like, what would you say is realistic for me? I just went to Erie to get on gears, to look at every power league I might have. How can I make myself better? I'm going to Nemacolin, and then I'm going to go to Penn State Research Lab. So I have relationships with all 3 of those places.
Wow, that's awesome.
So I'm going to go get on Swing Cat, which is force plates, with a kid that used to work with me from the area. that I have been mentoring for a long time, and he's doing great. He's at one of the top resorts in the country. And then I have relationships with some of Hank's guys at Penn State who are now in the research lab. And I said, look, take me down, tell me what I need to do, show me, make me feel it, and I'll get on my program. And I have a trainer out of Dallas National. He's a national level trainer that I pay to teach me about food, about movement, about stability, about rotation. And so, yeah, and it's not psychopathic. It's just I want to show people that, look, you're 60 or 50 or 40. If you're 30, 40, 20, and I hit it farther than you, there's a problem. And these are the things that if you could do any of these, you can achieve. So the competition is versus me. My brain, my standards,
Very interesting.
Yeah, like I don't go by feelings in my life. I go by standards.
Yeah.
So if I get up and I say I don't want to go to the gym, I go.
Very.
I'm very patterned about how I move. I just lost 45 pounds because I wanted to be better.
Yeah.
Have more energy, be more fit.
Yeah.
My wife thinks I'm nuts. I'm like, well, we'll see who lives longer.
There's probably no more than that though, right?
Well, I am nuts. There's no doubt about it. But we could call it passion. And I tell my students too, not all addictions are bad.
Yeah.
Not all obsessions are bad, right?
Yeah.
It's like panic, right? Panic is contagious, but so is calm.
Yeah.
Right? What you're doing is not impossible, it's just hard.
Right.
They're all the same things, and what people don't realize is that you can do it. There's always a price to pay, financially, time, whatever it is. You can't just throw money at it though.
No.
Like you have to find the right people.
Yeah.
And
you have to actually want it.
Yeah, and I think it starts with self-discipline.
Yeah.
So when we have talked about this, like the learning curve or how people learn or how they succeed is they start by being inspired. And then they go to self-discipline and they say, okay, here's what I need to do. And then they go to discovery, right? And it's self-discovery, and then there's some discovery externally, and that's where a coach would probably come in. And then there's some confidence, and they're like, oh yeah, I can do that. I can hook it.
Right.
Oh wow, this is great. This is like crack cocaine. I used to slice it, now I hook it.
Yeah.
And I can't stop hooking it now, right? So you have some discovery and some confidence, and then you get competence. And then from competence, it takes a little more time to get to mastery. And then once you master it, you win.
Yeah.
That's how it works. And I haven't seen one athlete in my 30 years of teaching and coaching that hasn't moved that timeline. And some never get to mastery. They never get to competence.
Yeah.
And so then they start to adapt inside of that and say, like, look, I may not be a good driver of the golf ball, but man, am I good at irons and wedges and putting. So that's how you get around it.
Right.
And you say, okay, we're gonna top run your driver and say, like, look, this is our focus, but let's also tread water here because we're good at it. And so we make it a thing like they've got to hit it farther and they have to be better at it. So we do speed classes and function and all these other things for them, and they get better.
Yeah.
And even if it's 10 yards farther, look, you're 10 yards closer. How great are you going to be when you have a wedge instead of a 9-iron?
Right.
You're like, oh, yeah.
And that's a big thing is that when people want to hit it further, I think a lot of people who don't truly understand what that means, they want the distance off the tee, not necessarily focusing on the shortness into the green on the next shot.
Right.
That's really the real advantage.
Right, and for us too, if coaches are really coaching, they're going to do data-driven stuff too, and they don't.
Yeah.
And so, like for us, my players, no data, no lessons, no coaching. So they gotta measure scrambling, greens in regulation, putts per round, and fairways in regulation. And fairways in regulation is probably not just fourth on the list; it's probably 14th.
Yeah.
If they hit it far and it's in the rough, I don't care.
Right.
I don't care if they hit the fairway, just hit it far.
Right.
But what if I hit it in the woods? It's okay. Because your brain's going to start to adapt and you'll start getting it close to the edges.
Right.
But I want you to go fast. And they're like, well, how do I? Okay, well, you need to learn how to function.
Right.
Right now, you just swing with your arms. But what if we incorporated a little bit of your lower body? What if we started the lower body to start your swing rather than the hands? All of a sudden, their hands are faster, right?
Yeah.
You might have them hit balls from their knees.
Because everything's happening in the right order.
Yeah, or swing a weighted club on their knees, right?
Yeah.
So a couple of my partners are overspeed overload training companies, and I have them for a reason, because we gotta keep going to overspeed overload. So overload is heavy, and then heavy with hit, and then that's gel sticks, and then overspeed is heavy in a speed situation, and we don't care about a target or anything. We just try to swing and blow out our O-ring, if we can.
Yeah.
And so we try to teach them the difference between the two and why you have to balance them.
Yeah.
And why these things work. And even non-dominant swings. So if I'm right-handed swinging left-handed, why that's important.
Yeah.
Everybody says, well, it's to balance your body. It's really not. It's to train your deceleration. So most people, if you watch, when they swing, they go past the golf ball and then they're trapped.
Right.
If the club's too shallow, they can't get it around and they'll snap hook it.
Yeah.
Or if they're vertical, they'll shank it.
Right.
Their body learns how to decelerate. They learn how to post and turn. Most people don't know that anymore, especially young people, because they don't play catch. They don't throw a football anymore. They go sit on the computer all day, right?
Yeah.
They're actually evolving. If you look at their spine and their shoulders, they're this way, right? They're going into the fetal position, which is dying.
Yeah.
Instead of being like we are, retracted.
Right.
Because we grew up playing sports.
Just being outside in general.
It's like, how about some movement?
Right.
I do move. I go like this and I change the remote. I was saying in my presentation this week, when I grew up, we had 4 channels. Well, 5. Off was one of them, right? UHF, which was channel 21. 8, 9, or 8, 10, and 13, right? And if you didn't like the show that was on, it wasn't even worth getting up and changing the channel. So you just turned it off and went and played, right?
Right.
Well, now you have 1,000 channels of the same thing, just over and over and over. People are like, I can't find anything to watch. I can't find anything to watch. Right, because there's only legitimately 20 shows on.
Right.
And it's just 20 shows times 100.
Yeah.
For 2,000 channels. That's all it is. And they're like, they can't figure it out. Oh, and by the way, we're going to charge you $250 a month for that. When you could legit get up and just throw a football around for free.
Yeah.
Or take your kids out and play catch or go skiing or anything, any kind of movement. Walking would be good.
Right.
But we just don't get it.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunately, culturally, the athleticism, there's such a big dispersion now between the high level and non-existent.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah. It's
like
just
there's
getting
no middle
further
kids
and further
anymore.
apart. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. And they'll say like, well, they're talented, they were born that way. Well, there is a certain level of talent, but if your kid never gets off the couch, you're never going to just be able to decide.
Right.
And parents would be to me like, well, what do I do? Well, the average person touches their phone 2,617 times a day, right? I just did a motivational email this morning about, unplugging a little bit.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
It was called first responder. Everybody has to be the first responder, right?
Yeah.
I'm the last responder. I just wait till tomorrow and say,
Yeah.
okay, it's 24 hours, you just texted me. Is it immediate? No, I'm not going to text them till tomorrow.
Right. And it's some people, if they don't hear from you, it's probably something.
What did I do wrong?
Yeah.
Well,
There's
that's
some
being
type of
raised that
emergency.
way, though. I was like that when I first, like if I sent a text and someone didn't, they must be pissed at me. Oh no, they could be traveling or,
Right. Yeah.
maybe their phone's off.
Right,
or-
exactly.
I never look there. I'm just like, what did I do wrong? Did I upset him? What did I say? As I've gotten older,
Yeah.
I know it's not bad because
Right.
I'm more reserved in
Yeah.
speaking. But when I was younger, I was like, I wonder.
Right.
Yeah.
So to get back on the
I'm always off track, by the way.
I haven't noticed that at all though.
Oh, you haven't? Oh.
The charity work,
you do for vets and the military, and
Yeah.
and maybe some of it's not just charity work. Can you kind of touch on that and explain what charities you might help? Or I think you even mentioned you have your own.
We had one at Locust Hill. We had a 501c3. It was the Locust Hill Caddy Scholarship that we started there. But I work through PGA Hope, basically, so help our Patriots everywhere. That's a national PGA funded organization, and what we do with that is we offer golf to vets to get them out of the house, basically, and we use golf as a connection to keep them together. So I said, well, it's an 80-person program in Buffalo, and then they're getting some traction up here in Rochester. There's winter programs and summer programs for them, and then I said, well, I want to do something more that's not political, that's not based in, executive this and, diplomacy this. And I'm the one that decides how things go. I get my partners to fund it. So I do something called the Vets Classic every year.
Okay.
And so the past 2 years, I've invited 15 vets, and I get their golf funded, their food funded, and they usually bring their campers and pup tents.
Oh, nice.
And so this past year, it was like a village. So they usually come to my house. I have a big piece of property. They park their cars and their campers, and they plug into the barn. And we have bonfires and everything else. But this year, because we got a little bit of rain, like a flood, before we had the one this year, Mill Creek's owner let us use the short course parking lot. And everybody wondered what the village was, down there. This year, I'm gaining funding for hotel rooms so that everybody gets their own room, they have a shower. And we do some cool things. Some of my students' parents donate food in, they bring meals, like hockey teams. Rochester Golf Expo, which is at MCC Bill Gray's Iceplex.
That's newer, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to actually launch in March finally this year.
Gotcha, okay.
But they actually host the first meal, and they've done it the last 2 years where we bring the vets in. For the first year we did it in the fall, so we watched the Rams and the Bills play on a big screen TV and had hot dogs and drinks.
Nice.
And then this past year, we had JoJo's Cool Bus came in and they did ice cream. You'd think these kids are like 5 years old, and they opened the whole thing up and said, you guys can have as much as you want. And so, they were eating like 5 ice creams. And then in the evening, we do enrichment. We call it enrichment, but it's basically just a bonfire and sit around and talk. And they'll tell about their deployments or how they're struggling maybe at home, or that's where you kind of get to the root of it.
Yeah.
And a lot of them have a lot of demons, a lot of alcoholism, drug addictions, divorces multiple times, domestic violence perpetrated against and by.
Right.
Some of them have, just lots of kids and like normal, regular people, but they also have this one component, 2 components. They're all connected by the military, but a lot of them experience a lot of depression.
Yeah.
And so we had a couple guys this year where some of their very, very close platoon members committed suicide. I mean, these guys are in their middle 30s. You would think by that time they'd have it all together, but they just don't. I don't know if your audience really knows how veterans get treated once they're out of the service, but it's not good.
Yeah.
It's hard for them to get health care, even though it's provided. It's hard for them to get the medications they need, even though it's available. Counseling, their classifications for their disability. They might be, when they leave the service, they go through their charts and see their medical issues, and then they place a percentage of value on that, and that's the dollars that they get. So some of them, even if they're 100% disabled, they might only get $2,000 a month.
Wow.
Even though they were in the service for 12 years,
Yeah.
It's just kind of the matrix, And so they have to go work even though they're not capable maybe, or
Right.
the VA's helping as much as they can, but they're overburdened and overwhelmed. And it's interesting because I teach a lot of NFL players, and it's interesting our society will pay somebody $20 million to catch a football or a baseball, but a veteran might only get 21,000, which is literally the poverty level.
Yeah.
You know, and they went out and risked their life or lost a limb, or you know, so it's just the way society works. And I don't have harbor any ill will towards my athletes. And it's interesting too, like, you know, a teacher. You know, like when I first started, I was making $28,000 a year. They're like, yeah, but you get a pension, right? But I have to invest in it. Yeah, but you get healthcare, right? But I still, you know, I get it. You know, but at the end of the rainbow, you're making 100 and I'm making 28. You're putting a screw in a pen, and I'm shaping the minds of thousands of kids.
Right.
So our society, when it comes to the military, is a little bit screwed up, in my opinion. But, you know, but we're fighting it, and it's great to have these programs, and it's all free for them. They don't pay a dime, you know, which is great. And we need to do better. We need to do better on continuation. And so what I do with them is I coach them digitally too. I have a group of 60 vets that I send something out to every week.
Oh, wow.
I have a group of core guys that I call, take them to dinner, or we meet for lunch, and then one in particular that's just kind of a kid that I mentor, that I have for the last 2 years, where we just talked today, you know, and he says, I'm having a rough time, you know, I'm struggling, and I said, you know, 2 years ago, you never would have said that. I would have asked how you are, and you would have said I'm fine, and I said, you know, so, and I tell him I love him every day that I talk to him. Pretty much every day I talk to him, you know, at some point, sometimes twice a day. Probably today I'll talk to him another time. He's having a hard time at work, and he doesn't process things, you know, like you or I would. You know, somebody yells at him, he just closes down. I go, dude, don't let that guy yell at you. Well, he's my boss. I don't care. You're a human being. Like, say, put your hand up and say, excuse me. You know, if you're going to yell at me, I'm not going to engage with you, and then just walk.
Right.
What if he fires me? Do you want to work for him? He's like, well, I have to. I go, do you have to, really?
No.
You're just comfortable
Has to do
right now.
Yeah.
I said, and I get it. You know, you're making great. He's doing really well. He's driving some heavy machinery. You know, but let's think about this.
Yeah.
You know, he's a great kid. He's 36. He's not really a kid.
Yeah.
You know, just a great attitude, but they can go to some really dark places, and especially if they get whacked around a little bit. Like if you or I gets whacked around, we're like, you know, I'm going to be out of this in probably a day or two. They go into like tailspins.
Depression.
It's hard too, and then you add PTSD or some other things that they have, and their upbringing for some of them. So let's say you came from an alcoholic family, you go in the service where you're structured. They plan your day out every minute of the day, when you eat, when you poop, when you shower, when you train, and then after 12 years you're out. They just drop you off at the bus stop and say, hey, have a good one.
Good luck.
0% chance of succeeding.
Yeah.
Unless they're given the job that they had in the service as a civilian, which happens with a very small percentage of people. You know, and those are the stories you hear about.
Right.
You don't hear about the guy that's living on the street,
Right.
that he's homeless. You're like, dude, you were just making 30 or 40 or 50 grand a year. Yeah, I know. I don't know how to make money because I can't get a job. No one will hire me. You know, and I'm an engineer and I don't know what to do.
That's wild.
It's nuts. Or if they're just a high school graduate, right?
Yeah.
And you start to look at, like, okay, well, what did you do in the service? Well, I drove Humvees. Not much call for that.
Right.
You know, in the real world. You know, what am I going to do? Well, the VA will give me some money to go to a class, but it only gives me 30%. How's that helping?
No, it's not.
It's not even getting them close to the finish line. So they're already defeated.
Yeah.
You know, and I've talked to this young man a lot. Like, look, I know education's not your bag, but you have to get a piece of paper that says you're good at something.
Right. Anything.
You know, anything.
Yeah.
Communications degree, animal husbandry, it doesn't matter, you know. And we're still trying to explore, like, what do you really want to do?
Yeah.
And he has a foundation. He's trying to help other people. I'm like, dude, you can't even help yourself. Like, how are you going to help someone else, right? And I give him a lot of credit.
Yeah.
But I'm like, why don't you help yourself? Like, let's take care of yourself first, and then from that point. So the mentoring part of it, is super important to me. That's why the Patriot Award is,
Gotcha.
you know, and even like you see, do you know what Folds of Honor is?
I don't.
Okay, so Folds of Honor is a national organization that was started by a guy named Dan Rooney, who was a fighter pilot, and he got out, and when he was leaving his last duty, he got out of the service. I think he served 12 or 15 years. He got out, he was flying back home, and there was the remains of a soldier on his plane, and so they announced it. He went out and he saw the casket coming out with the flag draped, and he saw a wife with 2 little kids, you know, and he's like, well, I know what's going to happen there. Nothing, right? Nothing's going to happen. Those kids are not going to be able to survive. So he decided right there that he was going to start an organization that was going to help families, and so it evolved to scholarships. And I just saw him this week. He's a Cirrus owner, so he was on a panel. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he's given out almost $100 million.
Wow.
Yeah, in the last 15 years. And these are all was it 100 million? Yeah, I think it was 100 million. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
When you think about it.
Yeah.
But he gives out scholarships to these kids, and now those little kids that were there, they both got scholarships, and they got put through school, and
That's awesome.
they got a life,
Yeah.
because of that. And so he just opened up a golf course, because he's a PGA also now, and they opened up a course called America Dunes, where Jack Nicklaus donated his time to do the architecture.
Okay.
They built the facility, it just opened last year, and so 100% of the money that they get goes to vets, to the scouts. So I mean, it's amazing. He's an amazing guy. He goes all over the country and speaks, and for his foundation. And
You said his name was
Dan Rooney.
Dan Rooney?
Yeah, Noonan. So, yeah, I talked to him, and I said, look, I want to bring a group of vets. He goes, oh my God, I love that. And so I might have try to raise funds for 3 vets and myself to get down there and just treat them, to a good time, good trip.
Yeah.
And there's always this balance too, Jamie, with the system versus reality, versus where they want to go, versus what's happening. So you do have some people that work the system and they're really good at it.
Yeah.
That are undeserving, but they get it. And then you have other people who are deserving who can't get out of their own way and can't get it because they don't know how. Then you have this proud moment where they don't want to ask for help, but they should. So you have all these wheels spinning all the time. I used to try to help everybody. I'm just like, okay, I got my core group.
Right. And then you can only do so much.
Yeah, and I don't want it to be a clique either. I want it to be inclusive.
Yeah.
But in the same right, there's a group of people that I trust. I know they're not going to go out and get arrested when they're here.
Right.
And so those are typically the people that I ask back year after year. And if they want to bring a friend, it always works out that somebody can't make it. And
Yeah.
so we had a couple new guys this year that were great. So we got a couple OGs and we got some new Gs, which is
Nice.
yeah. Another long answer. I'm killing you.
No, you're doing
Hopefully
just
this is
fine.
all right.
This is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, this is
Cut.
great. One more thing before we kind of wrap it up, though.
Okay.
Players in Rochester that you've worked with. I do want to talk about one, and that was Jeremy Summerson. I had the pleasure of watching him in the final round of the Ryan at Oak Hill.
Yeah, he's no good.
I caddied for Jonathan Spur, and we were in the same group, and I was absolutely jaw-dropped as to not only how far he was hitting it, but how high he was hitting it at the same time. And I honestly don't think I've ever seen an amateur have that type of ball flight. And he, the round wasn't flawless by any means. I saw him chip in and make a long putt or two, but that's what you got to do to shoot under par, right? Especially at a course like Oak Hill.
Yeah.
But, wow, just...
The tee shots he was hitting were on a whole nother level of anything I've seen.
Yeah, and he's not at his potential even yet.
Yeah.
And so, he came to me a couple years ago, and he knew that he wanted to do something different, but there's always this pull between my original guy and where I want to be. And so I'm really civil about that. I'm like, look, I'm not trying to take you from anybody. You sought me out, and here's what I would do with you. And I said, here's the process that we would go through, and I don't know how your coach coaches you. And he goes, well, I've been with him since I was young, but I just think it's maybe time for a little bit of a change. And I'm like, that's fine. I said, but if you're in, you're in.
Right.
I'm not.
Right.
I don't want anybody going back and forth. I won't allow it, actually. And if they leave,
really?
they're out.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't have them come back and, keep going back and forth. Because emotionally, I invest a lot in my people and in my students. And so I want loyalty and accountability just like they want it from me. Yeah. Right? And so we forged a really good relationship, and he started to get more open about his game, and it wasn't any major changes. Like, he's super high level athlete, number one. He's super smart, totally gets it, incredibly well mannered. I mean, and very receptive to instruction, but also knows what's BS at the same time.
Yeah. And
so we got him hitting it pretty good last year, but we were still missing out on the club fitting component, and so he played that round. He had a pretty good game plan playing the West, but he didn't take it too serious. Like, I think he thought he was going to go in there and tear it apart, and he didn't.
Right.
And so the East fits him a lot better because it's longer. And so he's got a distinct advantage because, he'll hit at 350, with his driver.
He was low round on the day.
Yeah.
I think the only person under par, actually.
Yeah, because he was, the thing he was most proud of was just the communication between us at that time, and that, look, you can do it. Just go out, work the plan. The plan will work, and just go have fun. Right. And it's always better to play from behind, not 40 places, but it would be nice if you were like in 6th place or 8th, right? Maybe at the worst, but a lot of guys were, in my opinion, kind of playing out of their league at that level, and I said, you're gonna rise, and so I said, we can't really think about what other people are doing. You just got to dig hard and just go, and that's what he did. And he got it rolling a little bit, and then it just, with a kid like that too, it's just such a confidence for him. Yeah. And he's very real about his game. He's very real about his game. He accepts praise very, very well. Some people don't. Yeah. He accepts it well, but he also accepts authentic assessment very well too. Like when things need to change, it's not a hard sell for him. Like, if that's what he needs to do, that's what he'll do. And so in college, he came in here and got his irons done. He needs to get his driver done, and he'll be back, but he doesn't hit his driver very much because he hits it so far. Yeah, there's a lot of times where even a 340-yard hole, he can't hit driver because he'll hit it over. Right. And so I just, we tightened up his start lines, number one, and we couldn't get him tight enough just because the shafts of his clubs weren't good. And I go, look, this is as far as we can go with your current equipment. I go, if you like the heads of the club, that's fine. I go, but something has to happen with your shafts, and are you open? And I typically sell it that way. Are you open to this? He says, yeah, why don't I get down to school, I'll play a couple tournaments, and then I'll come in. And so he did. And then he got his clubs, and it was a great plan. We got to work for about 3 weeks with his equipment. And so he was getting close, right, to playing really, really good. Like, he played good at Oak Hill, but really good, like tour level good. Yeah. And so he was playing in a tournament. It was a 2-dayer, and he shot 76 his first round. And he was like, I know I'm close. I go, you're close. Next round, 64. Wow. And it was just like the light switch went on. Yeah. And he knows that's not where he'll be every day, but there's no reason why he should shoot 68 every day. High 70, and that's where he is. He's starting to come down. His dispersions, as far as the scores are coming down, like 76, and it's Harry Carey for him. Like he's ready to but he gets it. You know,
right.
And as a coach, there's this. I'm proud of him, and I didn't build him. The person that was with him before did a nice job, but he needed to make some small changes.
Right.
Like as far as the plane of his golf swing, and then also about how he curved it. And so he can hit 9 shots. He can hit any shot that he wants, but he never believed that. He never was taught that.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, hit it this way. Put this much gird on it. Super high level.
Yeah.
And so we're exploring that a little bit more for him. And he doesn't feel like he's maybe a great putter, but he is, and so what makes you a great putter? Hitting it close, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to make
much.
tap-ins, right? And so the impression is that every time somebody plays in a tournament, they're going to have, every putt's going to be 6 feet. Well, that's not reality. The reality is from 100 yards, he's probably going to be 21 feet. If he had 10 opportunities, he's only going to be 6 feet once. Maybe twice. The rest of the time, he's going to be somewhere between 8 and 21 feet. 10 and 12 and 21 feet.
Yeah.
So as we started to look at his, dispersion, and he collects a lot of data, through his college coach.
Yeah.
And so he knows his dispersions, which is good. We know his miss. He can miss both ways. But typically he'll have a one-way miss, and better players are usually left. And then, getting stronger in his scrambling, and so he's done a really good job, and I just heard from him. He's super transitional. He's not in a real structured type of program. It's more, he'll send me some video, and I'll take a look at it. He goes, I feel like my game's in a good place. And so when he came in here before he left for Orlando to play, and he was in an okay place. And I said, but you feel confident, right? And I said, what if we did this a little bit? And he's like, yeah. It's always a suggestion when they get close to tournaments. And so he started hitting it really good again. And I said, you got to just keep your target lines tight. You drift away, and you're not putting, you're not putting things for you to use as benchmarks on the ground. And because, college kids, they don't have any time, but they have a million hours.
Right.
Just lay stuff down in your practice so that you can get groomed in to target lines. And so most of the stuff with him is just keeping the target lines really close, and then he limits the curve on the golf ball, which makes him really good. Yeah. So when you saw him play at Oak Hill, he probably didn't curve it very much.
No.
It was
just
it was high.
Very high, a little bit of a draw.
Yeah, tiny curves.
And it was just...
Yeah, and where he first came to me, he was kind of accepted this cut. And I said, well, I mean, you're a super high-level athlete. You can move it any way you want. Like, snap hook one, okay. Hit a big slice, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the, how can we make you comfortable hitting all shots?
So, speaking of talent, is there any up-and-comers in Rochester that not only myself but our viewers should kind of keep an eye on, or any expectations for anyone? Or?
Yeah, not much expectations, but you can see I've got a couple of really good juniors. I got a girl that plays in Rush Henrietta.
Okay.
Who I think is going to be phenomenal. She likes the weight room.
Nice.
She understands how her body moves. She came out of dance. She's also a high-level piano player.
Oh, wow.
And so her brain is really a high functioner.
Ability to learn.
Yeah. And then I've got another kid that's a boy that just left. He's 13 now. His parents moved to Tampa. And so he was starting to gain some traction. So I'm coaching him remotely right now. His cousin is also a student of mine who's just turned 14. He's a lefty, and he's talented beyond belief. But he's structured a little different. They're all different.
Yeah.
Like, he really cares a lot about what it looks like and the why. And so he's more of an engineer, kind of a brain. And I'm like, well, it doesn't matter what it looks like. It matters if it can function.
Right.
And so we're in this process with him. He's resting right now, so he's going to take off till February. And then, because he snowboards, and so I like to see the kids play different sports. So I've got some kids in hockey, and kids play other sports, which is good. And I've got another boy that's 13 right now, just turned 13. He's got all the levers. He looks exactly like Jeremy.
Yeah.
He's tall, big hands, long arms, long legs, short torso.
Yeah.
And he hits at 285, like no problem.
Wow.
So
At what age?
He's 13.
Wow.
Yeah. He's a very good hockey player, and he likes the contact, and golf's a little frustrating for him because he's so good at hockey, and he's not bad at golf. He just perceives himself as not being good. And,
right.
and it's a hard sport. You're all alone.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to it. Like I try to tell him all the time, the game doesn't really begin until the puck goes in the crowd. And then you have to figure out, well, I was taking a slap shot, but it went that way. Why? And so that's the hard part with younger ones, because their brain's not developed yet.
Right.
And they see someone that's 12 having success, and I go, I don't really care much about early success. I want it like where Jeremy's at.
Right.
That's where I want him to succeed. And they'll sprinkle in some wins and some top 10s, and so I try to get him to be top 20, top 10 their first couple years, and then get into 5, and then they start to win. And so Jeremy's 21, and turning 21, and so he's at the point where he's a man, and he could be, like I said, and that's how I like to see him progress. I've had kids that have had super early success, and they get a scholarship to college, and they just hate it. At the end of it all, it becomes a business to them. And Jarek might have shared, that type of mentality, and that he's probably having more fun now, when he's 30 than he was having when he was 20, when he was supposed to be in his prime, and everybody, look, if you compare, it's despair.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And everybody says, well, I want to be, Tiger. Well, guess what? You're not going to be, even his son is not going to be him.
No.
You're uniquely created to be who you are when you're supposed to be what you are when you are.
Right.
And so I hate to see the stuff with Charlie even, like, oh, he's going to be, blah, 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 because he has this advantage and that. Well, what if he likes tennis when he's 15?
He could quit golf tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah.
And from that point, what happens?
Right.
Does Tiger support it, or does he say golf? Most of my professional athletes that I teach don't want their kids going into the sport that they're in for that reason, because they don't want them being compared to them in their careers.
Yeah.
Like you can do dance, you can play piano, you're not playing football, but they gravitate towards it because that's what their pops do.
Right. I think that's pretty natural.
Yeah, you went into golf because your family was in it.
Yep.
It was just like, you're going to do it.
Yeah.
Right?
No, but they're definitely more in the past couple of years. It's funny you say that, because it hit me that I was playing golf because my family was in it.
Because your dad played.
And I never took the time to ask myself, is this what I really want?
Right.
Do I really want to be doing this?
Right.
And of course the answer ended up being yes. In the end, I do love golf.
Right. How old are you?
I'm 29.
Yeah, 29.
Yeah.
Around 31, you start to figure it out.
Yeah.
We're all, like, as males, we're all trying to please our dad. No matter what kind of relationship you came out of. I mean, my dad's 86, and he's
asking you why
never
you're not number 1 and you're number 14.
But he's never said to me ever, until I have started to do some public speaking, like, you have a really interesting life. Like, if I look back on your life, your mom and me used to think that you had a lot of special problems. And I go, yeah, I did. I go, you guys, I could never please you guys, And I said, until I got to be 30 and I realized, I don't care.
Right.
I didn't care at that point. I don't care who's pleased except for my wife and my daughter at that time. That's all the only people I got to play in golf. That's it. Other than that, it doesn't really matter, does it?
Right.
And as long as I'm doing right by them, the good Lord and them, I'm good.
Everything should.
And everything kind of pivoted at
falls
that
in place,
point. Yeah. Where you just started to realize, you'd even be at a club or something, and you're like, oh, I'm trying to be friends with it and, you know, serve this one. And like I always looked at its service and they were takers.
Yeah.
And I kept giving and giving and giving. And I'm like, you know,
It's exhausting.
Exhausted.
Yeah.
And then I just said, you know what? I don't care. I'm going to be this. And if people come to me, great. And if they don't, I don't care.
Right. Yep.
And that's when I got successful.
Yeah.
I started to realize that if I cared more than they cared, that was bad. You know, but if people are coming to me, I gotta care, and I do. And that's why I have a really small culture, 70 people. We're all pretty much the same. They all like each other. I love them. They love me. They're loyal. I trust them. They're honest. They work hard, and they're accountable, and I'm accountable to them. And that's all that matters. I'm not looking to conquer the whole world.
Right.
I mean, how much higher can I go? Right?
Yeah.
I was even saying, like in my introduction at my speaking thing, like when they started to talk about all the stuff, you know, all the accomplishments and everything, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that one. That's scary because they can look it up on the internet and be like, huh, forgot about that award. Or,
Yeah.
like, you know, I've won national teaching awards as a school teacher. I don't even think about that anymore because it's not what I'm in.
Right.
But at that time, you know, or when I won a Margaret Warner Simon School Award, to me it was like no big deal. And then I talked to someone from the Simon School and they go, oh my God, that's like the most prestigious award that you can get in education.
Wow.
I'm like, really? No one told me that. They just said I got a free dinner. And I got a certificate, you know, like a plaque.
Rack of ribs.
Yeah, to put on the wall. Yeah, it wasn't even that good. So you're just kind of like, wow, you don't even think of the scope of it. But when you walk out of there and you say, wow, I won an award from the Simon School, and you're in Texas, they're like, holy crap.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, it's U of R. And they're like, I know, the U of R. You know, it's like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay. I don't know, I just loved the kids and basically did my job.
Yeah.
You know? So you wonder, you wonder how all this stuff works out, and everybody's grinding so hard. They're running to the wrong things and maybe running away from the right things. And
Without even realizing it.
yeah, they don't
They're
realize, right? Because they're looking
doing
at fame.
what they're doing.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're looking at your bank account as a sign of success, you're going to be pretty disgruntled
Yeah.
in life.
Right.
So I've tried to change that as you're in your 20s. You look at it more and say, man, I just want to be rich. Well, how much
What
you
does
need?
that entail?
Yeah, how much you need.
Brian, I appreciate all your time and
pleasure.
all your knowledge and perspective.
Yeah.
It was a lot of good stuff, and I look forward to seeing what you bring in the future.
Yeah, appreciate it. If you
Yeah.
ever need to come back, let me know. I'm always here to serve, and if your audience needs to reach out,
Yeah.
BrianJacobsGolf.com.
I was going to say, BrianJacobsGolf.com.
Use the contact form.
Find them here at Club Champion or at Mill Creek.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Yeah.
Did you bring some clubs?